Okay, everybody, good morning. Thank you for joining us today to discuss some strategies and tools for the TBE and dual language social studies classroom. I'm Erica Flores, resource specialist at the Long Island L.I.RBERN. And before we get started, I want to share the following with you. First up, we have our website. I invite you to visit and join our listserv, follow us on Twitter as well. There's also our YouTube channel, which I invite you to subscribe to. You can find recordings of past webinars, instructional snapshots. And again, I want to remind everyone to please sign into the chat using your first and last name, district, and title so we can confirm attendance and provide that CTLE credit. Today, we have with us Susanne Pena to share her expertise when it comes to dual language. Susanne has been an educator in the K-20 setting for over 16 years. She started her career as a teacher in Title I schools in the NYC DOE. She served as district coordinator for ESL and bilingual programs and world languages for Amityville. She also served as an instructional coach, supervisor, and evaluator of bilingual and ENL teachers at Amityville School District, and was the dual language program coordinator at PSIS 180M in Harlem, New York. Susanne also held the position of adjunct instructor at Brooklyn College for bilingual and multicultural education. She is the former director project manager for dual language STEPS grant at the University of Central Florida. Currently, she is the lead consultant at SMP Education Consulting and is pursuing her doctorate in adult education at the Kansas State University. Susanne will be with us for one more time this year on Monday to discuss the importance of administrators supporting the 3 pillars of dual language education with the goal of implementing and sustaining successful bilingual programs. So without further ado, welcome Susanne. I'm going to turn the presentation over to you now.
Welcome back, guys. I am so happy to be doing this presentation with you guys today. And hopefully you'll get some strategies and tools for the transitional bilingual or dual language classrooms. So those of you that have already been with us before and those of you that are new, here's my contact information. Please use it. Go ahead and shoot me an email if you have, or visit my website or whatever the case may be. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube as well. I am pretty responsive when it comes to email. So if you just need to chat, some of you have taken advantage of that. So I am more than happy to set up appointments and whatnot. So go ahead and take advantage of it. So just a couple of housekeeping items. We've, as you know, make sure to leave your video on. If you can, I understand. If you can't, please mute your mic when not speaking. Participation is key. Those are the important things. That's one of the important things about a webinar. We need your participation because otherwise it's just me talking, and literally I don't want to hear myself talking. And all the time, you know. And we're gonna be using the chat box to ask and answer questions, as well as you can unmute yourself if you want to ask a question as well. Let me see. I tell you, the technology works when it wants to and when it doesn't. Okay, there we go. All right. So what are we going to be doing today? We're going to be exploring tools and strategies available for TBE or dual language classroom, and specifically with social studies or history. And I put social studies / history as well, because the older the students, you know, we tend to change it into the title into history. And depending if we're doing it in Spanish, it could be ciencias sociales, estudios sociales, or historia. It could depend, especially depending on the country. They can know it as either ciencias sociales or estudios sociales. We're also going to be building and adding to our pedagogical toolbox and learning from each other. In the last couple of webinars, we've been learning from each other in the sense that we've been sharing ideas and strategies on how we have been using different websites or tools out there in our particular classrooms. So keep those coming. As you know, I always base everything on research and good pedagogy, and that means going back to the guiding principles. So if you haven't done so already, download them. You know what? Even if you're not in a TBE or DL classroom and they've changed you, or over the summer that you're going to be in another role next year, or whatever the case may be, this is just good good teaching strategies and just good guidance. So go ahead and download it. Make sure that you have it. If you want the hard copy, remember that you can always purchase it. But if you want the free version, as I always like free stuff, go ahead and download it. And I see Pam laughing because yeah, I love to get some free stuff. So whatever is free, I'll go for that, right? So as I always say, we're gonna base everything that we do on the 3 pillars, right? Bilingualism, biliteracy, high academic achievement, and social cultural competence. If it doesn't meet any of those, you know what? Maybe we should put it to the side and think about putting it or kind of revamping it a bit. Okay. Now we're gonna start with a poll question for today. Okay. All right. And our poll question is, oh, and before I forget, oof, my bad. Just remember that I will be doing the webinar also in Spanish. I'll be coming, switching languages. So just as an FYI. Poll question. So is history boring or fun? And don't lie, because we all know, don't lie. What do you think? What, as a student, when you were a student, how did you, what was your experience? Did you find history or social studies fun or and interesting, or did you find it like, wah, 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 wah? What was that? All right, so we have like 78%. I'll give it a couple more seconds for people to finish up. Okay, alrighty, so the majority of you find it fun. Well, I'll have you know that the majority of students tend to find history boring, or social studies boring, right? As adult, we find, something interesting about it and whatnot, but the majority of our students tend to find it boring. And the reasons for, and we have Charlie Brown here, right? Wah, 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 because that's how they feel. And these are some of the things that actually, in different studies, they have shown what kids think that history or social studies is. It's about dead people, right? So they don't want to know about that. There's a lot of memorization, so you just have to memorize a lot of stuff. It's all lecture, so you just have the teacher giving you a lot of dates and a lot of information, and you're just like Charlie Brown, wah 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 wah, and it has nothing to do with me. And so for kids, it's very hard to pay attention, right? Unlike maybe science and social studies, at science we have like experiments, and math we can make it really interesting and things like that. For students, the majority of them feel that science, social studies, and history are just so much lecture, so much memorization, and then they don't see the connection to their lives. And that's what we're going to change today a bit, okay? So what I have done, by the way, this is not coming from anywhere, this is just a multitude of sources. I have put together like 8 top strategies for the transitional bilingual classroom and the DL social studies classroom, right? And one is making information relevant to your students, okay? That is one of the biggest things that students find, that they say, you know what, history has nothing to do with me. It's about stuff that happened a long time ago, and I'm living in the present, and that's in the past, right? So making the information that we teach relevant to our students is key. Bringing history and social studies, either or, to life, right? Making it engaging. Going from teacher center to student center instruction, right? How do we do that? Less lecture from us and more student creativity and students actually discussing and engaging with one another. Solving historical problems, okay? And I'll talk a little bit more about these and give some tools. Teach using a thematic approach. A big problem that we have is that social studies / history kind of goes to the wayside, right? We have our ELA, we have our SLA, right? In a Spanish TBE or dual language classroom, we have our math, we have our science. And then social studies and history is like, if I get around to it, I will do it. And a lot of times we end up having it at the end of the day for some odd reason. That's like the slash box, I used to call it, right? The one that we did like slash something, whatever, and I'll kind of tweak it and whatnot. A lot of times we may not even have proper textbooks that go with social studies or an actual like program that was purchased by a school district, right? It's just kind of putting a lot of mishmash in there. Well, when we think about teaching a thematic approach, we are actually able to kind of teach social studies or history through other content areas and actually making it all stick together. And it saves us a lot of time. I am a big proponent of this. And I'll tell you a little story later on about a teacher that I've been working with that she recently used a thematic approach. Also, as I've mentioned before, if you've attended the other webinars, language is key, especially when we're in a TBE or dual language classroom. We have to make sure that we always are teaching language, okay? Because these are the only opportunities that our students are getting. If it's a TBE, they're getting English and Spanish. If it's a dual language classroom, it's English and the target language. So it's very important that sometimes if we go ahead and say that social studies / history is going to be the time that I'm going to be teaching that extra unit or time of Spanish, right? And I don't do it, or if I do it, I kind of do it really quickly and I don't teach language, my kids are missing out on that opportunity to learn more. And what happens, as I've already mentioned before in other webinars, what happens is that the students miss out on that. And as they get older, they do not get that academic language that is needed and is required to continue with either TBE or dual language programs in the upper grades. Incorporate questioning, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. I know that you probably already incorporate a lot of questions, right? But they tend to kind of stay at that recall level. And so I'm going to show you some strategies on how to take it to the next level when it comes to questioning. And as always, the use of technology. And I think that technology is great, and especially now that we're doing remote learning, remote teaching, whatever, distance learning, virtual learning, right? Technology is great, but we have to use it with a purpose, okay? All righty. So how do I make information relevant, okay? So a few strategies are connecting the information to the student's background, knowledge, and experiences. So this is, if we're looking at the 3 pillars of bilingual education, I'm going to call them that now. We already know that this fits and meets exactly that area of social cultural competency, right? Because we're tying it to the student's knowledge, their experience, right? What they are coming with. And it makes it relevant for them. So if they can see themselves in that historical fact or in that historical event, it actually makes that connection and makes it stick to their brains better. Connect what it is in the book to what's happening in the real world and to their lives. So a lot of times when we're doing social studies and we're doing, especially also with history, right? we're talking about past events, right? Like students say, oh, you're telling me about dead students or dead people. I don't need to, those are dead people. I don't need to know about that. And the students feel like, why do I need to know about these people? It's in the past. It's all in the past. It's all in the past, right? Well, if we connect it to something that is happening right now and or in their lives, it actually, they can see the connection of how history is cyclical. History repeats itself, okay, right? We've heard that. And history is cyclical. And we sometimes are not able to make those connections, right? And it's important for us in the classroom to provide this opportunity for students to see the connection between what's happening now and what's happened before. Okay. Now, culture and history should go hand in hand. You can't teach, I always say it, even when it comes to teaching in another language, right? You can't teach language in a vacuum. And so culture and history come hand in hand, and you have to make sure that you're teaching culture and you're teaching about your students' experiences through history or through social studies, okay? And it's very important to do so. And incorporating multiple sources of information. A lot of times, history or social studies, it tends to be written from a, just like math and science can be, from a white Eurocentric perspective, okay? And it's always, okay, written from the winner's perspective, okay? So what does that mean? It is very important that we incorporate multiple sources of information so that students are able to see multiple perspectives, right, of the same historical event, because it's not the same, right? So I'll give you an example. If you're talking about Christopher Columbus, right? Okay. It all depends how you look at history, right? And I see a couple of you nodding, right? It all depends because you could look most of the history books and social studies books. They talk about Christopher Columbus. He came and everything was hunky dory, right? Now, if we flip it for a minute, okay, let's look at how the Taínos felt, right? From the perspective of the Taíno Indians. And Taíno Indians are the native um, indigenous people of Puerto Rico and the Caribbean, right? So if we flip it for a minute, let's think about that. How was their perspective? You know, much different. I'm sure it wasn't all rosy and you know, and singing Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, right? In 1492. Okay. It wasn't as rosy as that. Okay. So making sure that we're able to incorporate those multiple sources so that students are able to kind of get the best picture of what happened in that historical event. Okay. Any questions thus far? We're good? Erica, we're good? Okay. All right. So, as I mentioned, another strategy is going from teacher center to student center, right? So giving students more control over their learning. So I'm going to pause right there, right? Because I know you guys are going to say, "Oh my goodness, that's going to be like what an entire mess," and I have to you know, cover these topics and things like that and whatnot. So when I say giving students more control over their learning, it is not to go ahead and say, well, whatever, we'll teach about whatever you want. No, we have a curriculum that we have to follow, right? There's standards, there's a set framework that we have to work within. From there, what we can do is actually start providing a little bit more choice for students to decide what they're going to learn. Granted, we have to cover everything, okay? But we might be able to provide students some choice, whether they want to focus first on, let's say, I don't know, some historical event that they seem to be a little bit more interested in. And so focusing on that and then focusing on another event. So giving them a little bit more control over their learning is going to be key from moving from teacher center to student center. Because a lot of times what we do is we look at the book, right, that is given to us or whatever is given to us, and we go by that, and we kind of check the boxes, and it goes in that order. And so students are not able to decide or even voice their opinions on what they want to maybe spend a little bit more time on. Okay, within reason, obviously, because we can't just say, oh, okay, we're going to spend the entire year on, I don't know, World War One, right? Because we still got to cover other things, but we can do it within reason. Now, another way that we can move from teacher-centered to student-centered, it would be more project-based and less lecture. So I'm gonna show you some strategies and some ideas on what is out there that you can use to move from lecture, right, of just that Charlie Brown wah 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 wah, and go into more of the project-based learning. And it's a little bit hard, I'm not going to lie, right? It takes a little bit of planning, but once it's implemented, let me tell you something, it is very successful, okay? And when I was in the classroom, I used to, my administrator used to come in and they would say, you know what, Pena, your classroom, they're always talking. I guess they took after me after a while, so I love to talk, so the kids just started talking a lot. But at least they were talking about it, and Pam laughs, you know. But at least they were talking about the work, right? I always had them talking. I think it was just fantastic. The problem was when they started catching on into my mannerisms, and then I was like, oh, yeah. But nonetheless, it's always great to have those project-based learning experiences, because students are able to then meet the 4 modalities, and that is at the end very important when you're learning language, regardless of whether it's English or another language. And as I mentioned, give students choice between topics, right? So let's say we're talking about an entire unit. Okay, you can pick and choose, right? And give some flexibility for students to pick topics within those units, okay? And I'm going to talk about Historia or Historia. And it's actually a program that allows to go from teacher-centered into student-centered learning, okay? And so I have a little video here. I'm going to unplug my my lovely earplugs so that way we can see how it works. And before we even start, you're already seeing a difference, right? Where's even the teacher in all of this? Right? We can't really see him or her because they're probably rotating around, but the kids are already talking. You can see kids are working, okay?
Somewhere down the line, learning became not fun. I think somehow kids started coming to school and saying, I'm not going to have fun today, I'm going to school. And the reward of Historia is fun.
Historia is game-based learning. It is a way to take a traditional subject like social studies, but to teach it through experience and interactivity.
Historia is viewing history and learning it through gameplay, and you get to experience it as your own country.
All right, here we go. 28. Oh.
Sixth graders, when they come into school, it's their first time in a big building. There's kids coming from all different schools, so they're not from the same elementary school. So a sixth grade mind is very social. They're gonna talk to each other at their table, not necessarily be listening. So when Historia comes around, it's definitely challenging the first few weeks while you're setting it up because they are confused. They don't know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. But then once it gets started, all those things kind of go to the side. I still hear them talking to their friends, but the conversation switches from the latest movie into, well, what points did you get? How did you do?
The best part of Historia, I think, is being able to create your own history, because not only do you learn about other countries during that time period, you get to learn about what has happened and what can happen to you. Have you ever heard of eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth? That comes from Hammurabi's code.
By the way,
If
I
I have
love
a
that
teacher
little
standing
kid.
in front of me talking, it's very hard for me to remember because I get bored, distracted. The historian is no place to get distracted. You're working the whole time and making decisions as a group.
So what are you finding is the most important about the route you kind of showed the other way?
Maybe education is really
It's important that students feel success, because if they don't feel successful, they'll give up. And at the beginning, when we first made the game, it was too hard. And the students you would have a group that was doing so poorly that by the second half of the year, you'd see them a little detached. Because they say, what's the point? You know, I've done the best I can, and now we're still not successful. I don't have time for this. You know? So Rick and I tried to build in ways students could be successful each week or every other week to where it's going to get them to keep on coming back to it.
You do learn a lot because you have to research everything and you have to learn what to do and how to make right decisions, and you learn how to be the government and learn how to interact with other people.
Who's the monarch here? Carson. Okay, so what's the bet going to be?
7. Oh, 8. Yeah. Yeah.
It's 8. Okay, you all think that's a good bet?
Jerry likes 10.
10?
But then we remembered slate revolt, so I'm like, let's do 8.
Okay, we'll see how it turns. Good. If I look at my job as everything you need to know is in my brain and I am your source of information, I feel like I'm sending the wrong message, which is somebody else knows the answer.
The story of the teacher is just there to facilitate. You're there to guide the learning instead of being the center for learning. You're there to help kids learn how to research better. You're there to help kids compromise. You're there to help kids learn to make better decisions. And that's how learning should be.
In my experience, 13 years of teaching, this is best teaching practice. When I didn't teach this way, I would still have 10% of my class who I would struggle to get to pay attention. Even though I did projects and games and mixed it up and debate and all that, I tried to make the class the best I could make it. Even when I did that and worked very hard at it, took it seriously, 10% of my class maybe wouldn't pay attention. I don't have that problem now.
When I started teaching, my mantra was, I am not scared to fail. Failing is how you learn. Making mistakes is how you get more knowledgeable and become better. And so I would try anything in my classroom to make a connection with my students, to make my class more engaging.
Alrighty, so one of
the good things that I love about this particular tool is that it gives you the ability to be able to incorporate it with what you got. Okay, because that's one of the things. The downside, like I say, there's a cost, right? Like everything, it's not free, but the way that they are teaching really engages students, and then it makes the lessons go from teacher center to student center, right? Because it's all about games, but the kids are not knowing that they are viewing historical events from different perspectives, from different countries, right? What happened? They're the government. Okay, how did this country act in this particular period, right? And so I happen to love it. Honestly, if I were in the classroom, I would definitely use it. And it's a tool, like I said, there is a cost to it, but it is well worth it. Okay, so it's something that you should think about it. And if not, I'm going to mention other tools that can start you in that path to going from teacher center to student center. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay?
No question.
Okay.
Hello. I'm from Southampton, and my question to you will be, how do you deal with students who just, I think that this program might be good for people who are in advanced level, not for the type of kids that I deal with. My kids are newcomers, maybe intermediate level ESL. So we'll have to really pre-teach many lessons of research, and some of my kids don't even know how to read and write. How do you manage that?
Okay. And it's actually something that you're going to have to scaffold. Okay. You're going to have to see the different levels where your students are at, right? And provide different scaffolds. It's very important. Like, for example, if you have students that, let's say that the majority of your students speak what language exactly, Jenny?
Spanish.
Spanish? Okay.
Most of them.
So the first thing is finding a lot of things that actually do not have to do anything with reading, but might be visual, right? Hear it. Okay.
Right.
So finding tools like that and allowing your lesson to be able to incorporate those. I would start there, right? And building that dialogue because they can speak, right? They can speak in
Of course
Spanish.
they can.
Okay. So that's a way that they can hear, they can see, and usually using a lot of visuals, a lot of videos and things like that can allow them to then slowly scaffold into a more advanced framework. Okay. But actually
I'm
as
more interested in
those
the fact that whenever my students, once they get out of like my class, ESL per se, or ENL classes, then go into mainstream because they score higher and they are in mainstream. I'm more concerned about how mainstream teachers actually apply certain things like that. And I don't know.
I wish I do understand the struggle.
Here at, EL or
Yes, I do understand the struggle. And then the best way, obviously, is to actually not only, that's why I say good teaching is good teaching, because even though we're focusing here on dual language and on TBE programs, these are just good teaching practices, okay? This is just good stuff to go ahead and incorporate everywhere you go. I wish that more administrators would incorporate more training, so hopefully that, so that it's not just for the ENL teacher or for the TBE or DL teacher, it's actually for everyone. Um, and actually that is one of the things that I would encourage. And have you ever thought about the possibility of probably maybe you presenting to your fellow colleagues, if that's possible? I don't know the situation.
we do have trainings, we do have that kind of thing, but like, yeah, let's leave it at that.
Okay. Uh, not a problem. I got you. I got you. But I know sometimes it could be a struggle and it could be challenging. I would also recommend to go to the L.I.RBERN. Okay. Let me tell you something. That's what they're there for. And I'm going to put Erica on the spot. I always do. I'm so sorry. But they are honestly there to help with things of this nature, and where other teachers, aside from I'm going to put the bilingual education umbrella, right? The ENL, the dual language, TBE, whatever the case may be, we know these practices, right? We know what to do. But sometimes other people outside of that umbrella, they kind of need a little bit more TLC. And the L.I.RBERN is actually there to provide that and bridge that gap in a better capacity. It doesn't put you in that awkward, position as well. Um, Also, kind of you just shouting out, "Hey, I went to this fabulous webinar. Check out the check out the webinar on on YouTube. Go ahead and check it out." Things like that sometimes they do help. But if you can't control the environment around you, okay, and this is just me as a teacher, okay, close the door and do what you got to do. Because if you teach your kids and you scaffold correctly and you teach your kids, a lot of times all those strategies they transfer and the kids take them to other classes, okay, because those are strategies that they are able to implement and they're able to use. Okay. But don't give up hope. Don't give up hope, okay? There's a way. There's a way. When there's a will, there's a way. All right? Jenny, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. All right. So the other thing that I always suggest, as I say, teaching language through social studies / history, okay, it's very important to incorporate read alouds. I'm a big fan of read alouds. As I told you, I have a young child and I read to him every day because I think even if I don't have time to do anything else, which I don't, okay, I mean, the struggle is real. Okay, but at least I have 2 seconds and I read him a little short story, okay, and while he's kind of sort of falling asleep, right, and I'm rocking him and he's drinking his milk and, you know, I'm multitasking, but at least I read. And read alouds are so, so important. So here I have put a list of read alouds specifically for social studies. I keep on saying science, I don't know why. For social studies and history, okay, that can be incorporated into your lessons, as well as then they are divided by topics and grade level. So I definitely encourage you to look at these and see which ones can apply to your different lessons. And that's another way of incorporating language into your social studies or history lessons, as well as incorporate books that feature a child trying to understand that time period. And I say this because a lot of times we are, when we have social studies or we have a history book, they tend to say it from, or that they tend to talk about that historical period or that topic from just kind of like a narrator and, you know, just a lot of facts and a lot of dates and things like that, right? They don't put it from the perspective of a child in that time period and trying to navigate the different circumstances. And so incorporating books that feature a child really gives students the opportunity to be able to then engage even more so in that historical period and be able to understand it from a child's point of view. Okay, incorporating discussions about materials read. Okay, so if you have, let's say you're reading a, you know, a book in ELA, let's say for a read aloud, or you're doing something in you know, in the upper grades, you're reading a novel, whatever, and it's a historical fiction or something like that. Take from that and include it into, right, and make an extension into your history or social studies class. That's very important. And then you're making that cross-content crossover that I definitely encourage people to do. The other one is, I mentioned it before, the tier 2 and tier 3 words. A lot of times we focus on our tier 3 words, which are our content-based words, and we don't focus on our tier 2, which are palabras polisémicas. So here what I've done is a specific list for social studies / history, tier 2 and tier 3 words. Okay, so instead of reinventing the wheel, they're there. Okay, so you can start looking at this list and seeing what are some tier 2 words that appear a lot on social studies or history books. And then from there, you can already start integrating them into your lessons, you know, without having to reinvent the wheel. Okay, so check those out. Now, I've also linked a lot of other resources that have to do with social studies and history for my little munchkins picture books, okay, that are related to social studies and history. Literature with social studies themes. So different books and the themes, the social studies themes that they have, okay? I also have notable social studies books by the Children's Book Council. So the Children's Book Council actually reviews children's books out there, okay? And they give them awards and kind of notices pertaining to how relevant they are to social studies themes. So they have a great list and they do it by year. So look at these lists. The latest one, I believe, is 2019. And it's very, very good because then it gives you a brief synopsis of what the book is about and how it relates to different themes within science, social studies and history. And then you're able to also see the grade level that it would be adequate for. The American history books by time period. So that's another great resource to get more books, to incorporate more read alouds and other sources into your history or social studies lessons. And children's book for teaching social studies. So this is now for my little munchkins. You know, this is an entire list of books that you can look at that you can teach social studies themes through. And a lot of them you probably already have in your classroom libraries, and you don't even know that that might be a great resource for your students. And the other thing that I'm going to say, a lot of these lists, okay, when you look at the title, they have a Spanish or translated version. So you should check out the books and see if they have the translated version, because a lot of times they tend to do that. Okay, so now I'm going to pause for a minute. I'm going to see if there's any questions, comments. I see that the chat, I see some that the number went up, so I don't know if there's any comments there, Erica, before we continue.
Mostly asking about the resources. You know, first it was Historia. We managed to find a link, and we shared that and the different programs and looking at it, because of course you're sharing all of this with me for the first time also. So I'm learning along with the other participants. So Susanne right now is the expert sharing these amazing resources. So bear with me as I continue to learn with you and find the resources.
And if you have any trouble or whatnot, just let me know, and I could definitely send you more information about a particular resource. Just send me an email as well. So
yeah, so you know, the great thing to note also at this time is that when we do share these slides, everything is hyperlinked for you. So although right now it's difficult to maybe follow along and do the research on your own at this time, in just a short while, we will send it out and I'll share it through the chat, and you'll have everything hyperlinked. So all of those resources will be very easy to find. Yeah. So again, those lists of links are all in the presentation.
Yeah. So that's what I did. So you don't have to go anywhere. You could just go straight to this presentation and click on the link, and then it'll take you straight to wherever you need to go. Okay. So you don't have to search for anything. So I have a discussion question for everybody. And if you can go ahead and in the chat box, you can put your answer. What are some ways you are bringing history/social studies come alive in the classroom?
So I'm seeing a lot of role play games, skits.
I could share.
Okay.
I bring
Michelle, how you doing?
Hi, good. I bring my pictures of when I was younger, because I teach bilingual first grade. So I compare the past and the present. So I bring my pictures of when I was little, pictures of when I was in 2 years old, and you know, the kids compare, like my mom had like Mickey Mouse, so that's similar from the past and the present, but how the Mickey Mouse were different, how we still celebrate birthdays, but how the furniture is different, how the different the artifacts in the picture, how I'm showing them a picture that is not from a camera, because the kids are like, oh my gosh, like what is that? Like I'm passing around the picture. Like a lot of students presently don't know, like we take pictures and you develop them. So I'm trying to teach them that. And on the back of my picture, you could tell it says like the month and the year that it was developed. So it says like February of 1978. So they're like, oh my gosh, you're really old. I'm like, yes, of course. So they get to they get to appreciate that. And I'm like, Well, with iPhones, we don't, it says the date you took a picture, but we don't get to, hold on to this picture. And then and I said you get to also smell it because it smells like, that old, like my mom had it in a box, like that antique-y old smell. So the kids really got to appreciate that. Or my old dolls, like my mom kept one of my old dolls. Again, I'm 43 years old. So like a doll that I had, like a Cabbage Patch Kid from 1980s, like, so the kids looking at a doll, they're like, "Oh, we still have this." And again,
You
like,
might want to save that Cabbage Patch doll. Just saying.
yeah, and it still smells like I don't know if there's anybody in the room that is my age, but if you remember the Cabbage Patch, when you opened it up, it smells like that baby powder. Like mine still smells like that baby powder smell, and the kids are like, "Oh, what's that smell?" But they're like most, the kids are appreciating that I brought things. And then we compare and contrast like the past and the present. So it's really, really cool that they get to see that. And I also bring in technology because I try to speak to my mom over the phone whenever possible, and the kids do that too. And you can incorporate that, like, oh, we could only speak to my aunt or my uncle late at night because in my country it's daytime, so I have to call them super late at night. So the kids are like incorporating that. So it's super cool.
Yeah, all those opportunities that you provide your students are fantastic, especially because there's a whole unit of past and present.
Yeah.
And then later on, I'm going to show you there's actually a game, and it's in Spanish, that has to do with past and present. So I'll show that later. Any other ideas? Thank you, Michelle, for sharing. Great.
The chat has so many ideas. I want to make sure that everyone is taking a moment to, even if it's just preview what is happening in the chat, because you might get some ideas from one another, which is a great part of these webinars is sharing what we are doing in our classrooms. So I'm seeing things such as bringing experts and guests, using artifacts similar to what Michelle was saying, debates, presentations, bringing in your personal or family history and experiences, using funds of knowledge, which is just, a big part of my own personal philosophy when it comes to teaching language learners, using escape rooms. I mean, there's really a lot of great ideas in here. So I welcome everyone to make sure they
Those are awesome. Those are awesome. I love it. I love it. I love the idea of the escape rooms. Those are great. It does take some planning, okay? But the rewards outweigh the, not the risk, I'm going to say they outweigh the planning. I'm going to call it that way. They outweigh the planning, right? There's a lot of, a lot of planning that has to go, but when you see kids making those connections and kind of like call it the little light bulb goes off, that is just priceless. And speaking of, so I wanted to talk a little bit about one of my, all-time favorite ways of teaching social studies or history. And I actually, speaking of bringing guests into the mix, I wanted to bring my world history teacher that I had when I was in high school, and which, by the way, I still am in contact with via Facebook. And her name is Mrs. Salgado, but unfortunately she's a little bit older, okay? And I couldn't get her today, but I am going to share one of the best strategies that I have ever seen when it came to teaching history. So she didn't have anything fancy. This was back in the day. There was nothing fancy. It was in Puerto Rico, so I'm going to set the scenario, okay? And she only had just a chalkboard, the green colored chalkboard, the desk in rows, okay? There was no fan or AC. It was straight up with windows in Puerto Rico. So you could, I'm just painting the picture. And she only had 3 books that she used. That was it. Nothing else. Nothing else. She had the history book that was assigned by the school that we had to have. And then that was in English. She had a history book that was in Spanish. And I still have a copy of it lying around somewhere. And then she had the Bible because she said that those were the 3 books that she went by, right? Anyway, but the funny thing is the way that she taught history. No gimmicks, nothing fancy, but she taught it as a novela. And let me tell you, it was the best thing. I still to this day remember world history because of the way that she taught it. So I'll give you an example. She would say, we were talking about King Henry VIII, you know how he had many wives, okay? And he went through wives like he was going through socks, right? So the way that she started saying the story was like, no, porque él tenía aquella esposa y ella se volvió loca, ella le dio un patatú que se sabe que ella se volvió loca, pero loca. Y entonces la metieron allá en aquella torre que se llamaba tal y tal y tal cosa, y olvídate, se formó un bochinche, ay bendito, y después la otra, aquella que era la mamá que se llamaba, qué sé yo, cogió y le dio un berrinche a ella y ella enjabonó la chancleta. I remember her saying that just like that. Enjabonó la chancleta y se largó porque ella no quería nada que ver con ese bochinche. Let me tell you something, till this day, I remember world history that way. Because it was just like, oh my God, I want to know, so what happened? Okay, y aquel le pegó cuernos a aquella, yache, y qué más pasó? And that is how she taught history. And if I was looking through things the other day and my mom found my history notebook that I used to take notes. And literally in my history notebook, it had history just like that. Like, aquel enjabonó la chancleta porque se formó un bochinche y hubo una pelea, entonces pues se dio la guerra de los 100 años y ta. And it was just so funny to read it, but that is how I remember history. And everybody in that class, it was like 30 of us, everybody in that class was like this. Ajá, ¿y qué más pasó? Ya, embuste, en verdad. Pero Mrs. Salgado, pero ¿y qué más? And it was just so interesting. Until this day, I tell you, she tells history, even current events, on her Facebook page, like a novela. Okay. So that is another way of making history come alive, right? In our classrooms, aside from all the wonderful ideas that you guys shared. And some of those ideas I have put here, right? Bringing history to life. So incorporating the use of plays and skits and songs and talk shows. There's actually talk shows as ways to engage students. Also providing students opportunity to act out historical events. Why? Because this gives them that perspective to see the historical event from a different angle. And that is very important, right? Incorporate presentations. I think that they're great, but going aside from just like, okay, I looked over, back in the day as the encyclopedia, not anymore, but, it goes a little bit beyond of just, going and doing a little research and that's it. Okay. And I presented it and I'll never remember it again. Okay. Role playing and simulations, which you've mentioned, and develop exploration stations with digital archives. So there's actually resources that I'm going to share that allow you to do things like that, like developing exploration stations with digital archives. So now in this stage that we're in with remote learning, okay, that it makes it very hard for us to actually be able to go to the museums or whatnot. Some museums and some websites have actually brought in those exploration stations and digital archives to you in a digital manner. So I'm going to share this as another activity that you can do, and where it's an example of Jamestown, and students did this, and it was a stop motion movie that they did. And yes, they use Harry Potter characters, but they're talking about Jamestown. Okay, so we're gonna watch it.
Very hilarious, by the way. What?
Jamestown was the first permanent English settlement. 110 settlers arrived in May 1607, all of them male. Many of them had embarked on the journeys to find gold and other riches, or possibly even a trade route to China. At the time in which the settlers had arrived, it was too late to plant crops. None of the seeds I planted are growing. How are we supposed to get food? The settlers would soon run out of food and had a long period of starvation ahead of them. To make matters worse, the swamp that the men had settled in was a malarial swamp, bringing disease to many of the settlers.
Yeah, a mosquito. Oh, I don't feel so well. I think I'll...
The settlers used the water for drinking and bathing, which easily caused the disease to spread amongst each other.
Ooh, water. Yummy. Oh, I don't feel so well now.
Salt water from the tide made the water brackish, and they could no longer drink it.
We have no more fresh water to drink now.
Due to the drought, the Native Americans who lived around the settlers were also struggling to plant crops. Many conflicts broke out between the settlers and the Native Americans. There were many problems faced by the people of Jamestown, and it is, in a way, amazing that Jamestown survived. Water pollution, Native American conflicts, disease, and drought are just some of the many reasons that the first permanent English settlement struggled.
So this is something that actually students are
able to do even now that we're doing a lot of remote learning. They can do it with things that are in their homes, and they can just videotape and do these little short motion pictures, and it'll look like the Lego movie as well. I enjoyed it, and especially since they use Harry Potter characters.
Suzanne, this is great. We have do you happen to know what grade those students were in?
This was I believe it was 8th or 9th grade.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But I have actually seen it done even at the elementary level, at one of the schools, the local schools here, and they have done really cute stuff with just even paper, and they just draw and they just move like the characters and put them on popsicle sticks, and and do it that way. So it's really, really, really cool. Other resources that we have is the Museum of London, okay, the Digital Public Library of America. Colorín Colorado has a lot of resources that you can check out as well, and I've already hyperlinked it to the specific page for social studies and history. The Library of Congress has an amazing, 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 amazing list of digital archives that you can access so that students are able to see and different sources of information, and actually brings history to life. Docs Teach as well. PBS Education also has a lot of resources, and it does have some resources in Spanish as well. The New York Library, now because of COVID, they have transferred most of their stuff online. So they have a lot of resources. So before we would be able to go or a field trip or things like that, well, now the New York Library has all the resources there. Ancient Mesopotamia also has, this is an educational site, and it allows you to navigate ancient Mesopotamia. And APM Reports has actually, I love it because it had actual radio recordings from such time periods as this, the Civil Rights Act, and that time period, Martin Luther King, and other civil rights leaders. And it was it was kind of a little goosebumpy hearing their voices in these recordings. And then we also have resources in Spanish. So tenemos más recursos en español también. El Museo del Holocausto en Washington, D.C. tiene también todos sus recursos y también tiene los recursos en español. Yo les digo que si jamás han podido ir a este museo en Washington, D.C., en algún momento tienen que ir porque honestamente que es para pelo. Es una cosa espectacular, pero ahora lo pueden hacer virtualmente y tienen muchos recursos, como dije, en español. Tienen el Museo Virtual de Arte El País También en este museo, aunque es un museo virtual de arte, pero tiene muchos, muchos, muchos recursos que tienen que ver con historia. Entonces también tienen Historical Thinking Matters, en el cual también tienen otros recursos que pueden utilizar para entonces poder traer la historia en vivo y a todo color, como una buena novela, ¿verdad? Para los estudiantes. ¿Alguna preguntita? Ah, veo que Michelle tiene, yo creo que una preguntita, pero no la escuché.
What does the APM stand for on recordings?
I think it's, I forgot what it was. That's their logo. And if you just go on to, just wait until you get the link to
link,
the
and then I'll press it.
And it'll take you straight to it. So you don't have to research too much. Like I said, all of these are hyperlinked to the specific pages that you need, so you don't have to do anything. Okay. And that's what I wanted to do for you guys. So it's just simple instead of researching. Because if not, it's like going through Google. It could be like going down the rabbit's hole. All right. Most of you already know the rules, but this is a little bit different. This is a trivia, and it's of course a history trivia. Yay! So we're gonna have a little bit of different rules to this game, okay? Everybody please get a piece of paper or somewhere to write. If you wanna write on your walls, that's perfectly fine. My son does too. But get somewhere to write, okay? Put the numbers 1 through 12 on that piece of paper, okay? I see Millie rushing to go get a piece of paper and pen, and she's like, I got this. Awesome, there you go, writing, and a writing utensil. That could be even your lipstick if you have it handy. Okay, all right, write the numbers 1 through 12. I am going to ask for honesty, okay? Honesty is the best policy. So I will give the answers at the end of the trivia game, okay? And the person, or actually I'll do, as I always do, 3 people. So the 3 people, the top 3 winners, will get prizes. And remember, I always give good prizes. So that's even the more incentive. There's no cheating. You cannot go and say, hey Siri or hey Google, find me the answer, because I'm gonna do it quick, okay? All right, okay, and I'm already giving you a heads up because they're multiple choice, so I made it easy. I was gonna make it without multiple choice, but then I was like, that might be a little bit cruel. But I hope I didn't make it as easy as I made the other ones, because all right, are we ready? Give me a thumbs up if we're ready to rock and roll. All right, I see Michelle. I see a couple of you giving me thumbs up. I see you all ready. Awesome. Okay, now let's start with the first one. Oh, there you go. Becky gave me a thumbs up. Thank you so much. Awesome. All right. What U.S. president led the country through the Civil War, cementing his legacy as one of the greatest leaders of all time? And I'm not going to sing the whole thing. And I will continue to the next one. All right. After World War II concluded, what organization was created to prevent such conflict from ever breaking out again? So you have World Health Organization, which they've been on the news lately, United Nations, League of Nations, International Maritime Organization. Poor World Health Organization, they've been on poor thing. Next question. In 1917, the Bolshevik revolutions shook which country to its core? Russia, Germany, Iran, or France? Okay, next question. What is the only country to have ever used an atomic bomb on an enemy? Germany, China, Russia, US. Next one. During Louis' rule preceding the French Revolution, there was a great famine. What was the name of his wife at the time, who is credited with saying, "Let them eat cake." And Kristen Dunst portrayed her very well. I see Michelle already knows because she knows the movie I'm talking about.
Yep.
Let them eat cake. All right. Let me move this so that I get. All right. Native Americans experienced oppression in the 1830s, which culminated in the Trail of Tears. What was this event? The mass murder of Native American children, the mass enslavement of Native Americans, forced migration to what we now call Oklahoma, deportation of Native Americans to England. All right, ready for the next one. What United States president ushered in his New Deal to help sculpt the shape of America for generations to come? Theodore Roosevelt, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. All right. I think Millie is like, oh, I got this. I got this. All right. Next one. What great event occurred during 1400 to 1650 in Europe? The French Revolution, the Industrial Revolution, the Renaissance, the Great Depression. Okay. Fast forward to World War II. Which country was not a member of the losing Axis powers? Japan, Germany, Italy, Soviet Union. And that could be. All right. What man effectively created Protestantism by nailing the 95 Theses to a church entrance?
Protestantism.
Pero no, don't say it out loud. Write it on your thing. Write it on your paper.
The word is Protestantism.
Thank you. I can't, mija. And I even already had a cup of coffee. And no, it's not working today. I need it too. Estamos bien. Thank you, sweetie. Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. See, that's why I need that second cup, because I can't understand anything.
No, that's okay. I had to repeat the word in my head a few times too. Don't worry.
All right, next one. At its peak, what empire conquered more of the world than anyone else in history? Rome, Greece, British, and China. All right. Let's jump back in time several years now. What Austrian's assassination kicked off World War I? All right. And I believe we are set. So now for the answers. Let me go back very quickly. Are we ready for our answers? Okay. No cheating. If you got it wrong, you got it wrong. Honesty policy over here. So I'm going to say the answers very quickly. Okay. And then I'm going to ask, okay, for the winners. Now, number one, in this particular question, the answer was Abe Lincoln. C. In this one, the answer was the UN, United Nations. B. Number three, the answer for this is A, Russia. Number four, the answer is D, the United States. This is a great question. And the reason why I put this one here is because if you're studying that time period, you can start an entire conversation and even bring it to nowadays with the US and how the US is making sure that no other country uses their nuclear warheads. So it's ironic, right? We can start having that conversation. Okay, we're in, okay, going to number 5. All right, the answer is A, Marie Antoinette. All right. And she was played by Kristen Dunst, and she did a great job. Let them eat cake. All right. Number 6 is letter C, the forced migration to what we now call Oklahoma. Actually, believe it or not, is where I was born, Oklahoma. Oklahoma, where the wind blows. All right. And number 7, the answer is D, FDR. All right. Some people tend to confuse it with letter A, Theodore Roosevelt, but actually it's FDR. Number 8, it is C, the Renaissance, el Renacimiento, right? Hopefully you did not put the Great Depression way off the mark, okay? All right. So hopefully you got that one right. All right. Number 10, which was not a member, and it is number 9. It's actually D. Soviet Union was not a member. It was actually, out of all the ironies in the world, okay, irony, hello, it was actually an ally of the US. Okay. Now, number 10, we have letter C. It was Martin Luther, not to be confused with Martin Luther King. Okay. Number 11. This one is kind of a tricky one because we often think of Rome, but in reality, the one to have the biggest empire is the British Empire was the biggest. So, letter C. And the one that started World War I, it was the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. And there's actually a picture, black and white picture that shows when it happened. So this started the entire war. Okay, so now, if you got 5 or more, okay, thumbs up. Okay, all right. Okay, and Erica, you're gonna help me out with this, okay? All right. So
no thumbs yet. Oh, okay. We got one. Colleen has a thumbs up.
Okay. See, Anna, Amanda. Okay, I'm gonna do it by process of elimination. If you got 6 right, okay.
I'm gonna clear. So I'm gonna clear because I think some people. I have seen in the chat we have 11 out of 12, 7 out of 12, 11 out of 12. So I think we're gonna have to go for those higher numbers.
Okay, so we're gonna start with those of you that got 11 out of 12.
Thumbs up if you have 11 out of 12. I see you in the chat, but it's going so fast.
Who got 11 out of 12?
So I know I see Lisa. But we do have 1, 2, 3, 12 out of 12. So I guess those are our winners.
Oh, so those are our winners. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. All right, yeah. Those of you that got all 12, very good. And those of you that got any wrong, we're gonna have to do a little conversation about that world history, huh? I think you need to watch a little bit more novelas from Mrs. Salgado over here, okay? You can remember your history. All right. But as you can see, I put some of the questions here strategically because you can make those connections to even things that are happening nowadays. As I mentioned, for example, the Soviet Union, even though the Soviet Union does not exist, right? Russia being an ally to the US with everything that's going on now, look at the irony in that one, okay? Also, the irony that the US has been the only country to drop a atomic bomb. It's like, oh wait, and we have this conflict with Iran. So bringing all of these things into history makes those connections between the past and the present, okay? So those are my 3 winners. Please remember to send me an email and you get your choice of prizes between Starbucks or Target, okay? And please just let me know in the email that which one would you like, and please put your full name so that way I can set up the gift cards. And I hope those of you that have won in the past that it was you have received your gift cards and you have been able to go shopping. All right. Okay, so let's continue. All right, so let's talk about the historical problem solving, right, strategy. And how do we do this? Because a lot of times it's like, okay, all right, what does that mean and how does that look like? Well, it's actually, and by the way, this is hyperlinked, so you can actually get more ideas on how to do this. So everything is hyperlinked. Have students live the decision. So remember that role playing that we had, right? So take that decision-making process. Instead of actually giving what was the result, have students use the information that is given to them about the historical period and kind of figure out what decision they would make based on the role that they have. Okay. And it allows them to start using other sources of information as well. Obviously, credible sources of information, but other sources of information. And then it has the students role play different perspectives, which is great because we're not just feeding the information. Remember how that teacher talked about in the video of Historia, of he doesn't want to become just the one that is the only source of information for students, because that's not what we want to do. And especially with history and social studies, we tend to become the only source of information. So the students are like, okay, just tell me what I got to memorize and call it a day. Well, you don't have to do that with this one. It gives the students the information and let them reach the conclusion. Provides students with moments to debrief. Let them go ahead and figure this out and have the moment to see how those decisions that they made actually were how did they pair up with what really happened. Okay, and give them that opportunity. Don't just go from the activity and then go ahead and don't give them that opportunity to debrief. It is very important in this particular strategy of historical problem solving to give the students the moment to debrief. And then so here is Stanford History Education Group. So if you have no idea how to even do this historical problem solving strategy, guess what? Stanford University, they came up with a whole bunch of lesson plans and everything, and with all the resources that you need, okay, to implement this historical problem solving. So going back to, even if you can't, if your district or school cannot purchase Historia, which was really cool, but they can't, but you want to go move more from the teacher center to the student center approach to teaching social studies and history, Stanford University has it right there, and I hyperlinked it to it. But we're also going to take a quick look at a video of how does this work. Okay, so you can see it firsthand. How do they
working? And like I said, they have all the resources that you need, and the best thing about it is that it is free. Awesome, which I love. Okay.
Reading like a historian, it's honestly my main curriculum I use in my classroom.
It's the best thing out there. Every high school should be doing this.
It's met every expectation and beyond.
I think I'm a believer.
Teachers have commented, like, I wish this is the way I would have learned history. I looked at the sourcing first, and then I closely looked at the document.
The first thing that this program does that is very different is that it turns history into a series of questions rather than a series of answers. A reading like a historian lesson would provide students with a series of primary source documents. Students would work together and ask themselves questions like, who wrote this? What else would I need to know to make a considered and valued judgment?
The source isn't specified. So if it was economics, you don't talk about economics.
We do engage the facts and the dates and the personalities, but in a much more meaningful and deep way.
There's no reason to go to war.
History is often taught as if it's settled, and for me to tell them this isn't settled, you have to figure it out, is empowering.
Who is this guy? We know that most of our students will not go on to become professional historians, but we hope that they will learn a set of skills that are applicable in life.
This isn't just memorizing, that you're figuring out how to evaluate all the information that you're getting.
with the focus on ELA and math and science and STEM, history is kind of being pushed to the wayside. And by using these materials, we can help teach kids skills to make them successful. We can help make history relevant again. We can help with these Common Core objectives.
Essence of it is that it provides all the resources that you need, but it makes it from a question-based format, right? And if you heard, if you were able to listen to some of the comments made by the students, was that, hey, they could already see, oh no, but he didn't have to do this, or this didn't have to happen, right? They start questioning, and that is an important skill. And why is it important? Because even if we look now and we take it now to nowadays, right? One of the skills that a lot of people don't have is questioning the sources of information that are given, right? And we can see that, right? So now this is actually teaching students to think a little bit outside of the box and say, okay, all right, I'm getting this source of information, but I need to also find other sources and then reach a conclusion, okay? And that is actually a strategy that we need in today's world, because we're so bombarded with so much information, right? And not all of it is accurate and correct. So actually questioning and finding out what is true and what is not, and educating ourselves in the information that we're getting. But nonetheless, you can go ahead
onto this link right here, okay? And you can get the entire site where you can go and access all the resources and all the questions, the entire lessons, all the additional resources that they mentioned in terms of additional sources. Everything is there, and it is nicely laid out for you. So you don't have to you literally just have to hit print. That's it, nothing more. And like I said, it is free, which is amazing. And it changes, right? It changes the teaching of history and social studies from just saying, hey, this is a bunch of information. I'm actually giving you a way for you to draw your own conclusions and learn more, right? Okay. Any questions thus far? And again, I do apologize for that snafu with the video. Any questions thus far?
No questions.
Okay. All right. So now another question that I have for you guys: do you teach by content or do you teach by themes? And I know that my upper level, those of you that are departmentalized, I know you have to teach in terms of content to a certain degree.
So a lot of people are actually saying both.
Okay. That's awesome. Now, those of you that are saying both, okay, how do you incorporate those themes? What are you doing? I would like to know more. You can unmute yourself if you want to do that as well.
I use both, and what I do with both, we're in New York, so we do a lot of the enduring issues at the secondary level, so it's a lot easier to do bigger themes because you see what continues to occur in history as an enduring issue. So we'll talk about how conflict is constant, so we can compare World War I, World War II, all the way back to the first battles that they were in any part of history, so it's an easy way to connect everything together.
Are you able, and I'm just going to play devil's advocate here, Andrea, and please, there's no right or wrong answer, but have you, since you're in the secondary level, correct?
Yes.
And I know that when we're talking about middle school and high school, they tend to be more of, this is the social studies department, this is the ELA department, this is the math department, and the three shall never meet, right? And you laugh because you know it is true, right? This is my lane and I'm going to stick to my lane, right? So have you ever discussed, or has the idea come across of actually sharing some of the concepts or strategies or skills that are happening maybe in math and incorporating them into social studies and vice versa? Has that conversation happened?
Yeah, So that happens a lot specifically with the English department, because if they're covering something, if they're reading a book on the civil rights movement, that we work together to discuss what time of year does it work best. So this year, typically civil rights movement, if we follow the curriculum, would be at the end of the year, but this year we did it at the beginning of the year and tied it in with Reconstruction, how it was continuous, knowing that the English department was going to be reading a book on the civil rights movement, so it was easier for the kids to bring everything together. And then in math, the reading of graphs and social studies is such a common concept when they're taking any Regents exam, being able to do that. So we teach them, this is like the same way you would do this in math. You look at this axis, you look at this title, and just teach them how to do graphing. Science, not so much. I haven't seen a lot of overlap and really haven't worked with the science department.
Okay, well, I'm gonna challenge you to, now that you see the benefit of it, and especially when you are talking about multi-language learners, it is very important to do this, because then they're getting the information across various subject areas, and it increases their repertoire of academic language, because and that's a big problem that a lot of our students have, that they don't see that, and right, and they don't see those tier 2 words exhibit in, you know, in math. They'll see them, but then they only have a very narrow definition for that particular word, and they only see it, like, let's say they only saw it in social studies or history, and they now are seeing it in math, and they have like, wait, what? Now I only have one definition of it, right? And so I encourage you to think about that, and especially since in some of the videos, if you look at them through their entirety, they're going to mention how some of this can be related to math in the sense of economics and how it plays a role. Because let me tell you something, most of the world's conflicts, okay, with the exception, and even then, they sometimes say, historians say Civil War was not, but it still was kind of. Guess what makes the world go round and round? This, right? And so look how big math has to do, even aside from graphs and others. So I would definitely try to encourage that. And again, like I said, there is a lot of planning involved, but it's so rewarding because kids start to get that interconnection between one and the other. And as we see nowadays, everything is so connected. We no longer live in this isolated society when things live in silos, right? Everything is now so connected, and making sure that students understand how things connect in the world. So thank you so much for that wonderful example. Thank you, Andrea. Any other examples that you want to share on how you have done themes throughout? I know some of you shared on the chat. I'm gonna have Eric.
So I'm seeing.
Oh, Gabrielle. I have Gabrielle over here. Yes, Gabrielle. Sorry, Eric. I'm gonna have.
I don't know if you guys will all be mad at me for this, saying this. But
no, Gabrielle. This is a safe space. Go ahead.
I do share with my students the idea that, and I teach only ESL students. I have a bilingual program in social studies, or 7th and 8th grade middle school. And so I feel like they can deal with more difficult subject area, as in, let's think more about the world at the same time as we're studying this content. And I do discuss a lot of things with them that have to do with First Amendment rights, that have to do with states' rights versus federal rights, and laws that states pass. And I also show them our history through the lens of how the US has been a bully to get a lot of what it has gotten. And, you know, with all of the racism that is obviously prevalent in our society, unfortunately, I teach them how really the US was built off the backs of immigrants and African Americans, and yet we do not pay them the respect that they deserve. And so when I was just teaching my World War II unit, which is unfortunately as far as I was able to get this year with the e-learning, I showed them how throughout World War II, all of the discrimination that was going on, not only did Germany have its racist problem of, trying to exterminate the Jewish race, but here in America, we were not paying women the same, so you had discrimination there. The African Americans were sent to segregated units. So these amazing Tuskegee Airmen, who were the most fabulous pilots throughout World War II, were still in segregated units. It wasn't until after World War II that the Army was more integrated. And the Japanese were put into internment camps, kind of a mantra that we would have to lay on the back of FDR. So, and of course through US imperialism, how we got our territories and how we took the land away from the Native Americans, just on and on. And so I let my students know, yes, the streets are paved with gold, and how did we get here, and how did the US get to be this great, big, powerful country that it is, etc. So I don't try to sugarcoat our role in the world.
And I think that is important. It's all about providing students with different resources so that they can get to their own conclusion. That is, to be quite frank, that is the way that I was taught in school. I was very fortunate to go to a school where my history professors and I was able to not only receive history about Puerto Rico, which is mandated, but Latin America, the world, and US, right? Being that Puerto Rico is a US territory, we had to learn all of that. And we had to learn it throughout, from all the way from elementary school all the way to senior year of high school, right? So it was very, very important for us to have that. And it actually allowed me to see the different perspectives and not only just see it from one side always, because history, as I mentioned, tends to be written in the history books from the perspective of the winner, right? Or from one perspective, which is 9 times out of 10, a white Eurocentric perspective. So that goes into that pillar of social cultural competency, which we then bring it and relate it, to our students' experiences and current events and how history is cyclical. So I always tell people, I was like, this is not the first time, this is not the first rodeo, people. I was having the conversation about the pandemic, right? Pandemic is not the first one, right? We had one 100 years ago, right? So, history does repeat itself. It's just that human beings were a little bit slow when it comes to learning our lessons. Sometimes we're a little bit stubborn. Anywho, but yes, thank you, Gabrielle, for sharing that. And it's all about sharing the different perspective and different lenses, and it's all tied into social justice component as well. So thinking about that thematic approach, I'm going to challenge you to just think outside of the box, think outside of that schedule box when it just has social studies or history for that time period, right? I'm going to challenge you to then incorporate it and teach it through other avenues. A lot of times we say ELA, but you know what? We got to think outside a little bit of just ELA, because ELA is the easy one to come up with, right? We got to start thinking about math, science, okay, other subject, even physical education, okay, if you want to think about it. Think about a perfect example is if we're thinking about history and indigenous cultures, hey, guess what? Games such as football and another one's like basketball. Yeah, the Aztecs were playing those a long time ago. Taínos were playing those, right? That's where it came from, okay? So that concept of a ball and hitting a ball, right? with your body, soccer, things like that. They came from indigenous culture. So tying all of this in. Another thing is maximizing the amount of time spent teaching social studies and history. Is very important that we do so. And with a thematic approach, we're able to do that. And not just leaving social studies and history to the wayside. It always tends to be in just that little time that we have. And it's like, okay, I got it. I got to teach it today. And it also provides the opportunity to go deeper into a topic or a lesson, right? Because we incorporate that thematic approach, and it allows for cross-content teaching, which I'm going to tell you something. It does take that planning, but okay, it does take the planning, but it does pay off in the end, because especially for our students, especially for our English learners, it gives that, and for multilingual learners as well, not just in TBE classrooms, but in the DL classrooms, it gives students the opportunity to see the same topic throughout different subject areas, okay? Now, the incorporation of questions, okay? So I'm gonna switch a little bit now into a little bit of Spanglish, I'm gonna say, okay? Así que incorporar preguntas. ¿Cómo relacionamos el pasado con el presente, verdad? Ya vimos en otra de las pantallas, ¿verdad? Ya vimos cómo podemos empezar a enseñar la historia, ¿verdad? Ya sea del mundo, de Estados Unidos, lo que sea, o estudios sociales, lo podemos hacer a través de preguntas, una serie de preguntas que hacen que los estudiantes tengan que indagar un poquito más, pensar un poquito más allá de simplemente decir, ok, pues lo busco en el libro. Pues no, o que la maestra me lo diga, o que el maestro me lo diga, pues tienen que indagar, tienen que reflexionar, tienen que pensar, ¿ok? Y las preguntas hacen eso. También pensar en preguntas que sean más, que no sean tan específicas, ¿verdad? Que no sean de una contestación o de una contestación sencilla o algo así, porque muchas veces ese es el problema que tenemos con historia. Cuando enseñamos historia o estudios sociales, nos enfocamos en preguntas que solamente dicen como que de una contestación rápida. Ah, pues fue en el 1900, qué sé yo. Ok, y ya, y se acabó. Pero entonces, hacer unas preguntas que les hagan a ellos pensar, como que si eso fue por ejemplo, si en algún evento histórico, si esa fue la acción adecuada basado en lo que había, o cuáles fueron las cosas que hicieron incorrectamente, o cómo tú lo harías distinto basado en la historia o en la información. Esas son preguntas que hacen que los estudiantes tengan que buscar más y tengan que decir más. ¿Ok? Pero con todo esto tenemos que proveerle a los estudiantes esa información, ¿verdad? Tenemos que proveerle información con lo que le llamamos el background knowledge, porque si no, para que ellos no tan solo estén a lo loco, estén pues basados en la información, en la historia. Así que tenemos que proveerles eso y tenemos que pensar antes de simplemente proponer estas preguntas. Tenemos que también darle esos recursos para que ellos puedan hacer los trabajos de investigación. Y esto lo voy a sacar de un libro que honestamente, que si no lo tienen en su repertorio, en su biblioteca, les inculco a que por favor lo vayan y lo compren. Es súper, súper, súper bueno. Yo personalmente lo he utilizado en las clases que he enseñado en Brooklyn College y es súper, súper bueno. Y se llama Social Studies for Social Justice, ¿ok? Y de paso es por Wade y tiene un forward de Sonia Nieto. Si no conocen a Sonia Nieto, ella es, tú sabes, like guru, hello. Yo la llegué a conocer el verano pasado y le di un abrazo súper brutal, like a big groupie. Pero anyway, si ella, especialmente Sonia Nieto, ella es guru de dual language, bilingual education, tú sabes, todo lo que ella escribe turns to gold, ¿ok? Ella ya no está escribiendo mucho, pero les recomiendo este libro si no tienen estrategias, tienen muchos recursos. Como pueden ver, el mío tiene un montón de papelitos porque lo he utilizado bastante. Inclusive en la parte de atrás, ellos tienen una lista de libros y recursos y websites que pueden utilizar que tienen que ver con estudios sociales y cómo enseñarlo de una perspectiva de justicia social. ¿Ok? Y una de las anécdotas de Sonia Nieto a través de este libro. Dice, questions initiate activism as well. Applying a critical questioning perspective to their lives, students can explore the reasons for present conditions and design strategies for changing them. ¿Verdad? Si le ponemos a los estudiantes estas preguntas para que entonces empiecen a pensar fuera de simplemente yo darle la contestación, ¿verdad? O la información, pues los estudiantes empiezan a tener estas conexiones y empiezan a ver cómo la historia, tú sabes, se repite y todavía tenemos situaciones. Ejemplo perfecto es lo que estamos viviendo hoy en día, ¿verdad? Pues la historia, mira, se está repitiendo en varios ángulos, ¿verdad? Y esto es un momento de estudios sociales, de historia, estos son momentos históricos, ¿entiendes? Estamos viviendo momentos históricos. Y pues es bien importante hacer esas conexiones con el pasado. Ahora, otra estrategia que también tenemos es el incorporar el uso de tecnología. Y lo puse todo en español porque de ahora para abajo me voy todo en español, ¿ok? ¿Estamos bien con esa? Espero que no vaya muy rápido. Pero bueno, aquí no voy a explicar todas, pero voy a simplemente señalar 2 o 3 que honestamente que yo las encontré muy, muy buenas y que las pueden utilizar todavía ahora mismo si están enseñando virtualmente o si van a enseñar virtualmente escuela de verano, que no sé en Nueva York todavía, pero aquí en Florida empezaron la escuela de verano y la están haciendo virtualmente. Pues tienen un montón de cosas. Este es uno de mis favoritos, lo voy a decir porque me encantó. Y llena las 3 B, ¿verdad? Bueno, bonito y barato, en este caso bueno, bonito y gratis. Y es Google Arts and Culture. Y la cosa es que aunque se llama Google Arts and Culture, pero honestamente te da acceso o le da acceso a los estudiantes a tours virtuales, ¿ok? De museos a través de todo el mundo, ¿ok? Y no tan solo museos de arte, pero museos de historia, museos de todo, a través de todo el mundo. Así que es un recurso excelente. Y también tú buscas el museo que tú quieres y entonces en el país donde tú quieres y entonces pues coges y tiene como un menú de las cosas que ese museo ofrece para tú mirar y qué sé yo, y es honestamente fantástico. Para aquellos chiquitines, ¿verdad? El Boston Children's Museum tiene una gira virtual que puedes ir y mirar, pues, obviamente porque ahora mismo pues no podemos accesar o no podemos entrar a los museos como antes y no se sabe cómo van a ser las giras, ¿verdad? Las giras educacionales en el futuro, pero mientras tanto al menos podemos hacer las giras virtuales e incorporarlas en nuestras lecciones. También está el Museo Nacional de Historia Natural, tiene un tour virtual y aquí puse el enlace para que vayan aquí al tour virtual, tienen virtual field trips. Esto es un currículo completo que es gratis, que les dice exactamente cómo enlazar, tú sabes, el tour virtual y enlazarlo como con una lección, ¿entiendes? Cómo se enlaza todo. Y si mal no me equivoco, si no es gratis, es bien a bajo costo, no cuesta mucho. El otro es el Classroom Law Project. Este es súper fascinante. Lo tienen para niños, diría yo, como de 4º para arriba. Y ofrece muchos recursos para los estudiantes, especialmente que tienen que ver con social justice, justicia social, y más el componente sociocultural. Tienen para los chiquitines Kids Discover, es bien bueno. También tienen el Smithsonian. Los Smithsonian Education tienen los museos y acceso a un montón de documentos y a un montón de recursos, ¿ok? En varios idiomas. También National Park Service, donde pueden ir a ver hasta los monumentos en Washington, D.C., ¿entiendes? Porque esos pertenecen al National Park Service. Así que pueden ver el monumento de Abraham Lincoln, de todo eso, lo pueden ver aquí, National Geographic, cual ustedes ya lo conocen, ¿verdad? Pues todos estos, y hay Civics también. Y todos estos, pues como les dije, es o gratis o a bajo costo. Y les proveen muchos recursos para incorporar la tecnología en las lecciones de estudios de ciencias sociales o estudios sociales, dependiendo del país o como le quieran llamar, o historia. También a estos son específicamente para recursos en español Y le puse recursos en español para enseñar ciencias sociales, ¿ok? Y aquí tienen una lista de muchos recursos y recursos para enseñar estudios sociales. Lo único que les voy a decir es esta nota al calce. Muchos de estos recursos vienen de España o vienen de otros países latinoamericanos, cual es excelente, pero a la misma vez tienen que ver cuáles son, entre la lista de recursos que ofrecen, cuáles son los que en verdad pues aplican para las lecciones de ustedes. Pero lo bueno es que les ofrece otro punto de vista, porque no es lo mismo la historia a través del lente de Estados Unidos como la historia a través del lente de Latinoamérica, ¿verdad? Otro que a mí me encantó es Geacron, y esto es un sitio en una página de internet donde tú pones la fecha, ¿verdad? Vamos a poner el 1900, al principio de los 1900, cómo se veía el mundo. Entonces te da una vista a cómo el mundo se veía en ese momento. Y tú lo puedes hacer 1492, lo que tú quieras, ¿verdad? Y lo puedes poner ahí y le das, y es en español. Así que los estudiantes pueden ver cómo estaban los países divididos, las diferencias y todo eso. Historia también es otro que es muy bueno, pero también, como les digo, vienen de otros países, así que tienen que chequear a ver cuáles son las cosas que son pertinentes para ustedes. Mundo primario, esto es para los chiquitines, ¿verdad? Y tienen juegos. Yo, como le dije a Michelle, tiene muchos juegos de ciencias sociales o estudios sociales para los chiquitines y es gratis. El American Social History Project también tiene recursos y los tiene también en español. Pinterest, es directamente a un enlace de Pinterest donde es sobre estudios sociales. Ahora voy a hablar un poquito del Departamento de Educación de Puerto Rico. El Departamento de Educación de Puerto Rico tiene recursos, tiene lecciones. Aquí yo puse el enlace específico donde pueden ir a buscar las lecciones de estudios sociales, ¿ok? Del Departamento de Educación de Puerto Rico, ¿ok? Y es a diferentes niveles, ¿ok? Tienen desde cuarto, quinto, intermedia, nivel superior, ¿verdad? ¿Qué pasa? Le puse el enlace porque si te vas a la página directamente del Departamento de Educación de Puerto Rico, te vas a perder, ¿ok? Así que le puse el enlace específicamente de estas lecciones y también ellos tienen estándares específicos que son más o menos iguales que los Common Core, pero que están, que by the way, no importa lo que le llamen. ¿Cómo es que le llaman ahora, Erica? ¿Cuál es el nombre ahora?
Next Gen Standards.
Gracias, porque siempre le cambian todos los nombres y cuando tú vienes a ver el estándar es el mismo. Pero anyway, I said that, no one else. Anyway, pero el Departamento de Educación pues tiene esos recursos y tienen ya lecciones escritas y tienen estándares para estudios sociales. Yo les recomiendo que lo visiten porque al menos pueden ver cómo ellos incorporan, porque ellos ya incorporan el aspecto cultural en las ciencias sociales o en los estudios sociales y en la historia, ¿verdad? A través de sus estándares. Así que ustedes pueden observar y pueden ver los estándares y cómo los tienen, ¿verdad? Para coger ideas de cómo incorporar el aspecto cultural en sus lecciones, ¿ok? Bueno, y este es uno que antes de terminar, ¿verdad? Ya nos queda bien poquito, pero quería decir, este es de España. So, otra manera de uno poder hacer la historia un poquito más interesante o para que los estudiantes estén más, pues, interesados en aprender historia, aprender estudios sociales, es haciendo a través de cómics que los estudiantes pueden hacer ellos mismos en páginas de internet, ¿verdad? Lo pueden o dibujar o lo pueden hacer. Aquí les doy el enlace, es un YouTube video completo en español, viene de España, como les dije, y es un proyecto, ellos le llaman Proyecto Cómic, ¿verdad? En donde es una maestra que ella habla de cómo ella ha incorporado la historia y está enseñando historia a través de cómics, y estos son los proyectos. Estos son ejemplos de los proyectos que sus estudiantes de nivel intermedia y superior han hecho sus cómics y han puesto la historia a través de su explicación, ¿verdad? Y esto es algo que no tan solo puede ser para los estudiantes grandes, pero puede ser para los chiquitines también, de una manera que lo puedes hacer a través de un grupo o a través del salón completo, ¿verdad? Esto es una de esas actividades. Bueno, con eso llegamos a la conclusión del webinar de hoy. Quería ver cuáles son algunos de los, como diríamos, de las cositas que aprendimos hoy, de los key takeaways. Así que si pueden, o quitarse el mute, ¿verdad? Para que puedan decir lo que quieran decir, o a través del chat, voy a coger a 2 o 3 personas para que puedan compartir lo que han aprendido hoy. Y Erika va a ser la que me chequee el chat.
Todavía no tenemos participantes.
Ah, ok. Bueno, ¿alguna idea que se llevaron del webinar de hoy? Algunos recursos que están como que, mira, me interesa ese, quiero chequear ese, ¿cómo lo voy a hacer? Estoy loca por tratarlo una vez que, pues, quizás el año que viene o como sea.
Lo que sí veo is that, everyone's saying, I loved all the new resources.
Bueno, pues con esa la voy a dejar. Si tienen alguna preguntita, ya saben, siempre estamos aquí. Me puedo quedar un poquito más si gustan, pero quiero ser respetuosa del tiempo de todo el mundo. Si alguna pregunta después que se les ocurra, estoy aquí, me pueden mandar un correo electrónico a susannepena@smpeducationconsulting.com. Y me pueden mandar un email, o si quieren reunirse conmigo o lo que sea, virtualmente lo podemos hacer también. Y como siempre, muchísimas gracias por darme de su tiempo y escuchar lo que yo, tú sabes, las cositas que tengo que compartir, y gracias por compartir conmigo todas sus estrategias y todas sus ideas tan fantásticas. Espero que esto les haya sido de provecho. Y a todos aquellos que han asistido a los 3 webinars o a 2 webinars, o si este es el primero, en verdad, gracias por asistir, gracias por todo. And I'll switch it now to English, because if not, I'll keep on talking in Spanish. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. And if you've attended, this is your first webinar with me, or session, or if this is your 3rd or 4th or more, thank you again for joining us and sharing all of your wonderful resources as well, and for providing us with your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.